What's scarier than a billion-year-old, shape-shifting, child-eating clown? A town full of people who just watch? A town that, when faced with pure mundane human evil, just looks the other way. After the perfect 10 out of 10 pilot, the big question was, can they hold the line? Was it a fluke? Look, I'm here to tell you, The Thing in the Dark doesn't just hold the line. It digs the trench deeper. It proves this show isn't just about the monster, it's about the disease that is Derry, Maine. But here's the real reason your jaw is going to hit the floor. This episode just connected it to The Shining in a way that, realistically changes everything. What's up, my know-it-alls? That's right, you heard me. Dick Halloran from the Overlook Hotel. He's here. He's in Derry. And he's on a mission. My mind's absolutely blown. So the episode proved the pilot was not a fluke. This is the prestige, long-form It adaptation we've always dreamed of. It's using its runtime to really make Derry itself the main antagonist and the human horror. I would argue that it's just as terrifying as the supernatural. Today we're breaking down the two-front war of this episode. On one side, the human evil, the horrifying apathy and racism the Hanlons and Ronnie are facing. On the other, the supernatural horror, from that Hellraiser-level pickle monster to the universe-bending Dick Halloran reveal. Before we get into all that, though, don't forget you can click along the timeline for individual topics or just skip ahead. Let me know in the comments, which is scarier to you, the supernatural evil of Pennywise or the human evil, the town of Derry? Picking up from the theater massacre, this episode follows the two survivors, Lily and Ronnie. The town and the police are already gaslighting Lily, trying to pin the blame on Ronnie's father. Hank, who's a black man in a white town, no one wants to believe in a monster. Ronnie, devastated and furious at Lily for not clearing her dad, gets a terrifying visit from Pennywise, disguised, wait for it, as her dead mother. Lily, meanwhile, is stalked by it at the grocery store in one of the freakiest sequences I have ever seen, causing her to have a public breakdown, a very public breakdown, and get sent back to Juniper Hill. Literally the thing she didn't want to have happen. So, yeah, pretty terrifying. Simultaneously, we follow the Hanlon family. Charlotte witnesses the town's horrifying apathy to violence, and Major Leroy Hanlon gets Major Leroy Hanlon gets read in on the real secret project at the military base.
I've spent enough time in combat to know a brave man when I see one. But you, Major, are the rarest of creatures, a man without fear. And I've been looking for someone like you for a long, long time.
When we get into all of that, trust me, I want you to think very subtly in the back of your mind, how does this all compare to something like Stranger Things? Mainly because the moment they made it clear, and we're going to get to it, what was going on there, Mrs. Know-It-All was like, oh, so it's Stranger Things. And I was kind of like, yeah, kind of. It seems like that's kind of what they're doing. But anyway, this episode really does make one thing crystal clear. Pennywise is the predator, but the town is the ecosystem that lets him hunt. The real horror is the human cruelty and ultimately inaction. The most chilling scene in this episode had no monsters. It was Charlotte Hanlon watching a group of boys nearly beat another kid to death in broad daylight. Now, all the while, our grinning butcher just says,
Boys will be boys. What are you gonna do?
This is the town's sociopathy on full display. They're so warped by the entity beneath them that they're truthfully incapable of intervening. It's evil by apathy. This is what makes Hank's framing so terrifying. It's not just one racist cop. It's an entire town willing to sacrifice a black man to close a case they're too scared to actually investigate. The racism isn't a side plot. I would argue it's a tool that Pennywise's influence uses in order to feed. That said, the supernatural horror is really top tier. This episode felt like it was channeling A Nightmare on Elm Street and a Hellraiser sort of vibe. Ronnie's vision of her dead mother with this unbelievable, realistic giant umbilical cord dragging her toward a tooth-filled stomach with Pennywise's eyes inside. That is a visceral, psychological, A-grade horror. And Lily's scene in the grocery store. Wow, my gosh. She's trapped in the labyrinth of aisles, and it's funny because you could see as she's going through the supermarket, you got these really creepy, she's being stalked by these leering avatars, these guys, which are all just, like I said, avatars of Pennywise and whatnot. And as she's walking down different rows, the rows behind her are closing up. So as she walks by, all of a sudden it closes up and whatnot. It's very, very scary, very creepy. Her dead father's brined body parts reassembling into this crazy, grotesque, half man, half tentacle thing. It was grotesque for sure, and I would argue deeply personal, and I would think that as the NYT pointedly noted, uncomfortably incestuous in its undertones. It's not just jump scare, it's a psychological assault. And the punchline, it makes her look insane, and she's dragged back to Juniper Hill. You have to understand, Pennywise is playing 4D chess, okay? He's isolating his victims physically and very clearly mentally. Okay, so here it is. We're gonna get into this lore bomb, if you will. The military subplot.
Welcome to Operation Precept, a classified DoD crash program with a single purpose: to win the Cold War before the first missile is ever fired.
You're building a weapon?
Close. We're looking for one.
We find out the spy ring was sort of a loyalty test for Leroy. Why him? Well, because apparently his time as a POW damaged his amygdala. He's quite literally, and they make this assertion in the episode, he's a man without fear. But that's not the big reveal. The quiet, intense airman who's been staring him down, that's Dick Halloran. The show confirms he's telepathic, that he has the shine. And the military is using him as sort of this human dowsing rod to find Pennywise's beacons or deadlights. This is massive. It's not just an Easter egg, it structurally connects the psychic energy of The Shining to sort of the cosmic fear-eating nature of it. It suggests the shine is sort of a human defense against monsters like Pennywise. And I really do feel like this one reveal blows the doors wide open on the Connected King-verse, and it feels kind of brilliant. I know that I was blown away by the revelation. The pilot was 10 out of 10 because it was a perfect contained horror film. You know, and again, I don't need to really, this episode's not as quite as high, but it's not because it's worse. In fact, I would argue it's because it's doing the hard, brilliant work of being a series. It's definitely weaving together two things. It's waging a two-front war. The unflinching, very real-world horror of racism and apathy and mind-bending visceral terror of Pennywise, and it's expanding the lore in a way that feels earned, not cheap, and proving truthfully that this show, I think, has the depth and guts to be the new standard for horror on television. So there you go. Now you know. And if knowing's half the battle, you're halfway being a know-it-all yourself. For its unflinching look at human cruelty, its Hellraiser-level scares, and for that universe-bending Dick Halloran reveal, where does The Thing in the Dark land on the Know-It-All Index? I'm going to go ahead and give it a solid, rock-solid 9 out of 10. The pilot wasn't a fluke. This show is the real deal. It's horrifying, it's smart, and it's not holding back. All right, guys, let me know. Am I wrong? Am I right? Was I crazy? Was I not? Whatever it is, you need to let me know in the comments below. And I cannot wait to have a conversation more deep about this, especially because, again, I'm genuinely falling in love with this entire series. I think what they're doing is very, very interesting. I love it so much when a show has something to say. It makes it great. So let's get down in the comments and have that conversation down there. Don't forget, you can find me on all the different social medias at @ARealKnowItAll. And I absolutely would love to continue these talks across all those different social medias. You can also find me written reviews for movies that I don't get an opportunity to do videos for on Substack, which is mrknowitall.com, mrknowitall.substack. So, all right, guys, I'll talk to you again next week. Never forget, everyone loves a know-it-all. Bye, guys.